Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing by adding our pagination component. So the way I want to structure this is in this one I want to focus specifically on the pagination component, and then hopefully in the final video for this week we can tie it all together and neatly refactor some stuff. So let's go ahead and let's create this pagination component by coming into our client. We want to come into our SRC. We're going to have the features and posts, I think is where I put this. We'll right click on post, new file, we'll call this pagination.jsx, and then we can go ahead and get started in here. The only thing we need to import in this is going to be our prop types. We're then going to have our pagination function right here. You can then go ahead and close this. And then down here, we want to create the prop types, which is going to be for all of these numbers right here. We're going to set them all to required. They're going to be number, and then a function for the on-page change. And then we're just going to go ahead and export default the pagination. So the way that I want this to work based on the demo that I showed you is you're going to have, let me go ahead and do something like this. You're going to have a number where you have like previous as a link. You're going to have 1, ... Let's say we're on page 13. I don't know, 14, 15, ... and then like, I don't know, 89 as our last page. Next. So this is what I want it to sort of look like. I want to have us have some number of items in the middle that we can navigate between from relative to where we are. I want to put an ellipsis wherever we need to like omit some links so that it doesn't become huge. I want to have the ability to go to the first and the last page. And then I want to have a previous button, which just takes us to current page -1, or the next button that takes us to current page +1, assuming there is a +1 or -1 available. Like if we're on page 1, I don't want to be able to click on previous, for example. So this does mean we're going to be doing a little bit of math here. You can almost think of this like a leak code style question where we got to just, figure out a way to do this. The nice thing about this is it's a practical question, so you can hopefully follow along. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the total number of pages to be calculated based on what we said in our post controller previously when we showed off the total count as well as the number of posts per page. We can reasonably figure out if there's a total number of posts and how many posts we have per page, how many pages we're going to need, which is what this total pages is going to help us with. We're then going to come down to the very bottom, and we'll set up the return statement before we do anything else. Just because I think this will help clarify what some of the functions are going to be for. I tried to make this as clean as possible, but of course, it's how this always goes, right? It's always going to be relative to whatever you understand. I'm always going to have like a different point of perspective because I kind of already know how I'm going to build this out when I start working on it. So we're going to start by giving this a button of an on click for handle previous. It's going to be disabled if the current page is equal to 1. Makes sense. And then we just set this to be previous. So for our handle previous, what do we want to do? We have this handle change function, right? We said this was a prop types of function. So this is going to be a on page change function. That's going to be called in our post list, for example. So whenever we change the page here, we're just going to call this function and we're going to let post list figure out what it actually means to change a page. With that in mind, let's go ahead and let's create this handle previous function. What we're going to do in here is we're going to say if, we don't want to do this yet. We want to say if the current page is greater than 1, then we want to do a on page change current page -1. That's going to be our handle previous. Now, you can reasonably also deduce from this that we're going to have the next button, right? Next. And then we can say this will be handled next. Now, we do need to be careful here with our current page check, right? We have the next button, but our current page needs to be within some realm of reason. So we need to say if the current page is equal to the total pages, which is our calculated value, or if the total pages is equal to 0, we probably want to set this to disabled. That said, we probably also want to check this logic a little bit because we might see some tricks here. We could run into situations where, let's say, we only have like a small number of pages. We might have a great deal of many pages. We might find ourselves past the current page that we're even at, or that we're even capable of going to. We might go to like page 14 if there's only 10 total pages. So you always want to be a little bit cognizant of that, but I think we'll be fine here. So let's go ahead and let's do this handle next. For this handle next, it's going to be fairly similar to the handle previous. We're going to say const handle next. It'll be if the current page is less than the total pages. We then want to say on page change, current page plus 1. That makes sense to me. So that takes care of both of these. Now we have the first case and the last case handled. How do we handle the stuff in between? This is where it's going to start to get a little bit ugly. What we want to do here is we want to say we're going to need some kind of function like get visible page numbers. And then this is going to return some kind of array. And then we're going to do some kind of mapping on it where we have a page as well as an index, because we need some way to give this a key. We can then give this an arrow function, and then we can come down here, right? So we'll say this has an arrow function. In here, we want to do a type of for the page and check if it's equal to a number. If it is, we want to do something else. We want to do something else. Yeah, this checks out. Might need to change a couple things, but I think this is fine. For this first one, we want to give this a button. Let me just tab this over and see what it gives us. A button with a key equal to the page, because we know the page is going to be a number. We want to give it an on click that goes to the on page change where we pass in a page. Now we don't have the on page change here, but again, we're just delegating this to the post index where we just say, like, if you click one of these, somehow do this. We're just abstracting it out, which, as a side note, is a great idea to do in an interview, because even if you don't get to a working solution during your time, you might be able to hand wave away something like this and just be like, oh, you know, we just forgot about this while we were talking about it, but of course we would have covered it, but if we were, you know, actually working on this. That said, if the type of the page is not a number, then it's going to be that weird ellipsis thing we were talking about, where we just want to do that dot between two of these items. We still need to give it a key, so we use the index and we pass in an ellipsis hyphen with the index, which could also be the page, I suppose. It really depends because you have the ellipsis here. Ultimately, you just want the key to be unique, is my understanding. And then we just give it a style with a margin to sort of offset it a bit, and we put in the page right here. So this is kind of all we need. But of course we have this error because we don't have this get visible pages or get visible page numbers function. So let's go ahead and let's create that. Come up here. So for this one, what we want to do is we want to do a couple of checks. First, we need to say if we have total pages that is less than or equal to 10, we need to do something. Now here, Copilot is doing this thing where it wants to return an array from. And if you're not familiar with what from does, we can look at the documentation. You can see it takes in an iterable, and then it takes in a map function that you can then apply to that iterable, which means we're going to have some iterable here, and then we're going to have some map function here that we have to apply to it. I guess technically I should be covering this. That said, this is another instance where we can sort of abstract this. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to say this needs to create a range, is going to take in 1 in total pages. This create range function we're now going to create down here because we have to do this in a couple of places and I got tired of typing it. So we're going to say create range. It's going to take in a start and an end for the range, and then it's going to return an array dot from. This is going to be the length is going to be the end minus the start plus 1. We can then do a comma, and then this is going to be our map function. Now, because of how this works, it takes in the value and the key. What we're going to do is we're just going to underscore the first argument. We're going to use I for the second, and then we're going to do I plus start to this entire thing. Because again, this is a map function, so this will apply it to each element in this array. And then we can say, all right, all of that's been applied, that's been added up, that creates our new range. So if we have fewer than 10 total pages, we're going to create a range from 1 to the total pages. These will then be applied down here. So we'll have between 1 and 10 total page links. So you can think of it like in this case, what this would be previous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, comma, next, and then our arrow. Something like this. Although I don't have a comma there. Something like this is what we're creating in this case, I believe. The next thing we want to do is if we have a current page, which is probably going to be this one, if the current page is less than or equal to 6, let me go ahead and get rid of this. If it's less than or equal to 6, we want to say the last page before the ellipsis is equal to some number. I'm going to, in this case, just say it's equal to 8. And then we're going to return, and GitHub Copilot already has it. We're going to return the items with create range between 1 and the last page before the ellipsis. And remember, create range takes in a start, which is going to be this, as well as an end. And the end here is going to be ... and total pages. So again, this is very much in the realms of a leak code style question, as opposed to something you generally see me doing on this channel. But it's just sort of how my brain worked through this. It might be because I'm in leak code mode right now from interview prep. The next thing we're going to do, Copilot here is suggesting less or greater than total pages minus 6. I'm going to go with greater than or equal to total pages minus 5. I'm going to say greater than or equal to total pages minus 5. If we're in that case, we then want to do a return for 1, comma, ... comma, and then we have our ... create range, where we do total pages minus, I have 8 in my notes. I'm not sure if that's correct. And then we have our total pages as our second argument for this range. So we're going between total pages minus 8 and total pages. And then we can go ahead and close this. And then for the final case, if we get all the way down here, what we want to do is we're saying we're in the middle. So we need to do a return for a 1, ... our middle pages, ... and our total pages, right? So what does our create middle pages look like? Well, this is going to be one final function, I believe, that we're going to do down here. We're going to say, let's actually do this below the create range. We're going to say create middle pages. For the create middle pages, we need to put what the start of the middle pages are, as well as what the end are. So that's going to be effectively this one right here, this case, right? So if we're doing this, we need to do the first bit, then we need to say ... then we need to say, all right, we're at this current page. So we need n number of pages before this current page, and we need m number of pages after this current page before the next ... So we can pretty easily do this by just saying our middle pages start is going to be math.max between either 2 or the current page minus 3. We can then do a math.min for the higher number, which is going to be our end. Our end. Our middle page's end is going to be a math.min between the current page plus 3 and the total pages minus 2, because we want to take the smaller amount in this case so that we don't have too many links here. And because we're using 3, we should reasonably get something that's like, 3 plus and 3 minus from where our current number is. So we'll have 7 in the middle, plus 8 for this ellipse, plus 9 for this ellipse, 10 for the 1, and 11 for the 89. So it's kind of in the ballpark of what we want. And then the final thing we can do is we can return another create range, but this time we'll pass in the middle page start as well as the middle page's end. And that's effectively it for our pagination here. I do apologize because I feel like I did overcomplicate that, unfortunately. But hopefully this is going to allow us in the next video to add in the pagination. What I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go ahead and pick a spot to put this in for now. We'll do this below the search bar, I think is where I had it in the video. So we'll paste this in. We have our pagination here with a current page, a total posts, a per page, and a handle page change. So we can just go ahead and import the pagination real quick. Do that right here. And then we need to do the total page and the rest of that stuff. But for this section right here, I'm going to leave this to the next one because I think that's going to require a couple of refactors, and we've already been going for like 14 minutes. So for now, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next part, which should be up in like an hour after this video goes up.